Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. It's my pleasure to share with you some more Gosho. As you know, Nichiren has a tremendous amount of extant writings that have been translated in various languages. So we'll work with this English translation that I have, and I continue to go through, and I'm not really revising, I'm really clarifying language. A lot of Western scholarship, which I respect as scholarship, is very academic, very true as they can be to the words and characters they're transcribing and transliterating into English from Pali, from Sanskrit, from Japanese, from Chinese, from idioms that are personalized and so forth. They do a pretty darn good job. But that being said, almost without exception, from books of scholarship and academia, from universities all over the world, and translations from within the Buddhist order, they all bring to bear, whether they try not to or not, and I believe they sincerely try to accurately describe things, they still use words that are culturally familiar to them. So we see a lot of words from Western religions creep into the translations of Buddhism, which from my study just jump out as misguided or inappropriate. I understand their appeal to a Western mind because I too grew up in the West with all of those religious propagandas and everything from television commercials to holidays to on and on and on. They're inculcated into our awareness, our life, our awareness is probably a more accurate word because we use these words in our minds to define experience. But I think when it comes to Buddhism, we owe Buddhism a greater metric, a stricter metric of translations. So when words like faith come up, or evils and good, we need to transcribe those words or just get rid of them altogether and replace them with words that more accurately present the Buddhist Dharma, the mindset. And so I've taken upon myself the task of being that translator. This is partially why I'm doing these videos, because as I go through these, I see words jump out at me and I think that needs to be adjusted, that needs to be adjusted. And so I've done that. And I make these books available through Lulu, and some of them I think make it on Amazon, but I'm constantly going through them, revising them, so that the message, the underlying message of Shakyamuni's teachings is less inhibited by cultural stigmata and misperception of what's going on. Buddhism is a study of the mind and how it works to construct our experience of reality. That's a long-winded answer if somebody asks you, so why Buddhism? What's Buddhism about? Well, it's a study of the mind to better understand the way in which we perceive reality. Oh, what does that mean? Thus the study. Or just chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Just do that. It works. Just try it. You know? Different situations call for different responses. We're starting another Gosho here. This one's called The Actions of the Votary of the Lotus Sutra. So, an interesting title. Right upon reading it, you would say, well, this is yet another attempt by Nichiren to describe or to explain his life's work and his scholarship, and to seek within the teachings themselves, the sutras, validation for his own actions, right? But I have a feeling that, Nichiren never, even though it may seem on cursory readings that he's self-serving, he truly is not. And he actually has mentioned that in several Gosho that we've read together, where he says these actions may seem like they, on the surface, they look self-serving, but I assure you they're not. Nichiren's always reminding us of his humility, and that he takes what he's doing with a sense of great responsibility. Now, this, again, this isn't a terribly long Gosho, but it's going to take a few videos to go through it. But I think that's okay, because I have a feeling that what he's going to teach us is about our own struggle with not only practicing. Practicing in itself takes sometimes great courage. Other times it seems so easy, but we're a great momentum of tremendous, innumerable streams of energy combining into our experience of reality, and the way that we are inspired to make causes, and the attendant effects, many of which we're not conscious of, but the ones that we are strong indicators of an amalgam of energies that we either need to appreciate or to mollify, influence in a more life-affirming and joyful way. But we tend to forget that just as we practice Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, we also are committing to the Bodhisattva way. So, because there's no separation really between self and environment, the way we conduct our life condition, that radiates, for lack of a better word, into our environment. So even with no other effort than self-awakening, that momentum is leaving a wake around us and influencing our environment. You'll notice if you practice for some time that certain acquaintances or people will just sort of disappear. They'll fall away through no action of your own other than practicing Buddhism, because your karma's changing and you're attracting a different sort of energy toward you, energy that more validates your momentum, your path through life, and others will start to pop up. So you may not even be conscious of that. It happens over time, but it will happen. And in the same way, you touch other people's lives. So just practice. You don't have to actively work out pamphlets in parking lots to try to convince others. You will do so with your life. And so in that way, we are all votaries of the Lotus Sutra. And that's, I think, the important message that Nichiren will exemplify for us here. So, without further blah, 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 let's get into Nichiren's words. He starts out, on the 18th day of the intercalary first month of the 5th year of Bunei 1268, an official letter arrived from the great Mongol Empire, in which those barbarians of the West declared their intention to attack Japan. How courteous. Now, right off the bat, you can see this isn't, I received your coins and your offering, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. This gets right to business. And when the Japanese use the date of the calendar and the year and the reign, this is an official document now. So now we know that we're about to read something which Nichiren meant for others to share, the Sangha to share. This is a teaching moment. Okay? He goes on. My prediction on establishing the correct teaching for peace in the land, which, well, man, we covered that one quite a while ago, but you'll find it in the playlist on the Nichiren's Go Show. He goes on, which I wrote in the first year of Buno, 1260. So he's writing this in 1268. Oh no, that's when the letter arrived from the Mongol emperor in 1268. But what he's pointing out is in his document, in his Gosho, on establishing the correct teaching for peace in the land, peace and security in the land, I think is what it's called. Anyway, the Rishon Kokuron. He wrote that 8 years before that letter came from the Mongol Empire, right? Cyclical sign Kanoi Saru has been fulfilled to the letter. So, as he predicted, with the as we've already discussed, the tight bond between the religious teachings of the day and the shogunate, the government of the day, one used to support the other. There was a lot of misguided and really destructive Buddhist ideology that wasn't correct, and so he assailed those abbots, the leadership of Buddhism, as well as the leadership of the country, to get them to awaken of the terrible causes they were making, and that they were bound to reap the effects. And he read from the sutras themselves, you're doing this, so you're going to get this. I'm telling you, if you look clearly at what you're doing and how you're preaching and ruling from the wrong place, these things are bound to happen. It's not me, Nichiren, that's saying it. I am saying it, but I'm saying it because here's the evidence throughout 2,000 years of scholarship. Why are you doing this? You need to change what you're doing. Of course, rulers and those in power don't like to hear things like that, and you know the rest. My admonitions have surpassed even those set forth in the Yuefu poems of Chui, and my prophecies are not inferior to those of the Buddha, because they're the same prophecies. He read them from the Buddha and offered them again. A reminder, hello. Can there be anything more wondrous in this latter age? So he's not celebrating the fact that the Mongol Empire is threatening to overthrow Japan. He's simply saying, how much proof do you need that Shakyamuni's teachings are clear and present and aware and awakened? He saw this coming. I'm just repeating it. How amazing is that we have this kind of actual proof? He goes on, if our land were governed by a worthy ruler or sage sovereign, then the highest honors in Japan would be bestowed upon me, and I would be awarded the title of great teacher while still alive. So, what he's pointing at here is not his own vanity. What he's pointing at is these awards, rewards, and so forth are being lavished on these leaders of the Nembutsu and the Zen and the pure word, or true word, schools. And he's saying the shogunate, the rulers of this country, are about to fall to the Mongol Empire. And while they lavish all this praise and money and support on these guys who don't understand the teachings, and here I am, Nichiren, clearly pointing it out, things that I've been saying are starting to happen and manifest themselves. How is it that they aren't lavishing that attention on me? Not because I, Nichiren, am so great, but because I see the truth and I'm pointing it out. Do you see? I had expected to be consulted about the Mongols, since I warned them, invited to the war council, and asked to defeat them through the power of meditation. Like they constantly go to their other people, Chikaku and these others, to meditate for rain or crops or whatever, right? Since I've pointed out just from the teachings themselves how they're all incorrectly practicing, and everything I've said is manifesting. Certainly something as great as the invasion of the Mongol Empire would be a big enough aha moment that they would consult me. Wouldn't you? I got it right. Why don't you talk to me? No, that's not happening. Since that did not happen, however, he says, I sent letters of warning to 11 of our country's leaders in the 10th month of the same year. He's pretty relentless, isn't he? But when you know something is true, how can you not say something? Next paragraph. If there were a worthy person in this country, he would immediately think, quote, what a wonder! This is surely no ordinary matter. The sun goddess and great bodhisattva Hachiman must be offering a way to save Japan through this monk. That's what you would think, right? In actuality, however, monks of the other schools cursed and deceived my messengers. The government officials ignored or refused to reply to my letters, and even when they did reply, they deliberately neglected to report the content of my letters to the regent. So, again, no email, no phone calls, nothing. You got to rely on human beings to take your message to the rulers. But by the time you get to the ruler, you've gone through several layers of samurai, religious leaders, all these layers of obfuscation, of obfuscatory people. I don't know if I made up a word there or not, but there are all these layers of defense of people who they want to keep the leader ignorant because they want power. They want to maintain their hold. So, of course, if they, you're delivering a message from Nichiren, let me read that. No, you can't write. Or, here, take these pages out here, deliver that. Right? That happens constantly. Their behavior was highly irregular, right? Because honor and dignity in Japan, like any country, but certainly in that period of history in Japan, was held high. So for them to behave in that manner is really contrary to expectation. Even if the letters concerned only some personal matter of mine, the government officials should nevertheless pass them on to the ruler for his due attention, this being the proper way of government. So he's exposing corruption on several levels here, right? But in this case, the letters were a warning of dire things to come that would affect the destiny not only of the region's government, but of every other official as well. This is a huge problem, right? Even if the officials did not heed my warning, to slander my messengers was going too far. This came about because all Japanese, high and low, have for a long time now shown hostility toward the Lotus Sutra. Thus, they have piled up great offenses and become possessed by demons. Again, demons aren't little chattering deities or anything. They're demons because they're your inner mental thoughts. The official letter from the Mongols has deprived them of the last remnants of sanity. So now they're just acting out of fear, right? In ancient China, King Chu of the Yin dynasty, hold on. In ancient China, he continues, King Chu of the Yin dynasty, refused to heed the admonitions of his loyal minister Pi Kan, and instead cut out Pi Kan's heart. Later, his dynasty was overthrown by the kings Wen and Wu of the Zhou. King Fu Cha of the state of Wu, instead of listening to the remonstrances of his minister Wu Tzu, forced the latter to commit suicide. Yikes. Eventually, Fu Cha was killed by King Chu Qian of the state of Yue. Thinking how tragic it would be if our country were to meet with a similar fate, I risk my reputation and life to remonstrate with the authorities. But just as a high wind creates great waves, or a powerful dragon brings forth torrential rains, so my admonitions called forth increased animosity. The Regent's Supreme Council met to discuss whether to behead me or banish me from Kamakura, and whether to confiscate the estates of or execute my disciples and lay supporters, or to imprison or exile them to distant places. So they were going to make consequences of me for saying the truth. Hearing this, I rejoiced, saying that I had long expected it to come to this. In the past, the boy Snow Mountains offered his body for the sake of half a verse. Bodhisattvas, ever wailing, sold his body. The boy Good Treasures threw himself into a fire. The ascetic aspiration for the law peeled off his own skin. Bodhisattva's Medicine King, Bodhisattva Medicine King burned his own arms. Bodhisattva, never disparaging, was beaten with sticks and staves. The venerable Aryashima was beheaded, and Bodhisattva Aryaveda was killed by a non-Buddhist, all because of their devotion to Buddhism. You notice he doesn't qualify which Buddhism here, because Buddhism has one long, straight line of scholarship. There are many little branches that try to break away from that long line and create their own little club. And even if those clubs lasted for hundreds of years, it doesn't mean that they're right. In this sense, when Nichiren says, all because of their devotion to Buddhism, he doesn't say my Buddhism or true Buddhism or any qualifier. Buddhism is Buddhism. Shakyamuni's words are Shakyamuni's words. If you deviate from them, then actually you're not practicing Buddhism. You're practicing some other thing. You're calling it Buddhism, but it isn't. So this is something that, as you read Nichiren and hundreds of Goshos, and as you read the Sutra, Buddhism is Buddhism. If there's a qualifier in front of it, be suspicious. These events should be considered in terms of the time in which they occurred. The great teacher Tendai declared that the practice, quote, should be that which accords with the time. The great teacher Chang'an states, you should let your choices be fitted and never adhere solely to one or the other. The Lotus Sutra represents a single truth, but the way of its practice varies greatly according to the people's capacity and time. Now we're speaking historically, not today. In the past, the way that the teachings were handed out in order to raise people's capacity at specific times, that's scholarship. But ultimately, as the Lotus Sutra itself states, there is only one vehicle. And now that we live in the latter day, it is the only vehicle. The rest of it is a support. It's a foundational learning to get to the Lotus Sutra. You follow? The Buddha made a prophecy saying, quote, After my death, during the beginning of the latter day of the law that follows the 2 millennia of the former and middle days, a person will appear who will propagate only the heart of the Lotus Sutra, the 5 characters of the Daimoku, Myoho Renge Kyo. At that time, an evil ruler will be in power, and evil monks, more numerous than the dust particles of the land, will argue with one another over the various Mahayana and Hinayana sutras. These are Shakyamuni's words. When the votary of the Daimoku challenges the monks, they will incite their lay supporters to abuse, beat, or imprison him, to confiscate his lands, or to exile or behead him. In spite of such persecutions, he will continue his propagation without ceasing. Meanwhile, the ruler who persecutes him will be beset by rebellion, and his subjects will devour each other like hungry spirits. Finally, the land will be attacked by a foreign country, for Brahma, Shakra, and the deities of the sun and moon, and the 4 heavenly kings have ordained that other countries shall assault a land that is hostile to the Lotus Sutra. End quote. So, over 2,000 years earlier, Shakyamuni was making this prediction. And here we are in Japan, feudal Japan, shogunate government, civil war all over the place, being threatened by the Mongols. It's hard to miss that. It's pretty obvious. He continues, none of you who declare yourselves to be my disciples should ever give way to cowardice. Stay strong. This is expected. Don't be unnerved by this. We should expect it. Neither should you allow concern for your parents, wife, or children to hold you back, or be worried about your property. Because in the light of your enlightenment, all of those are fleeting, temporary things, right? Get your priorities straight. Since countless kalpas in the past, you have thrown away your life more times than the number of dust particles of the land for the sake of your parents, your children, or your lands, but not once have you given up your life for the Lotus Sutra. You may have tried to practice its teachings to some extent, but whenever you were persecuted, you backslid and ceased to live by the sutra. That is like boiling water only to pour it into cold water, or like trying to strike fire but giving up halfway. Each and every one of you should be certain deep in your heart that sacrificing your life for the Lotus Sutra is like exchanging rocks for gold or dung for rice. This is all about resolve again, isn't it? Now, at the beginning of the latter day of the law, I, Nichiren, am the first to embark on propagating throughout Jambudvipa the 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo, which are the heart of the Lotus Sutra and the eye of all Buddhas. During the 2,220 or more years since the Buddha's passing, not even Mahakashyapa, Ananda, Ashvagosha, Nagarjuna, Nanyue, Tiendai, Miao-Lo, or Dengyo has propagated them. It wasn't the time. My disciples, form your ranks and follow me and surpass even Mahakashyapa or Ananda, Tendai or Dengyo. If you quail before the threats of the ruler of this little island country and abandon your resolve, how will you face the even more terrible anger of Yama, the Lord of Hell, if, while calling yourselves the Buddha's messengers, you give way to fear? You will be the most despicable of persons. Once you know the truth, if you act against it, how many fables and stories do we have in the Western cultures about such acts? It's hard to remain true to yourselves. And we live in cultures now that don't even talk about these old fables and stories. So preoccupied in the next frickin' iPhone. I'm sorry, I digress. While the regent's government could not come to any conclusion, The monks of the Nembutsu, the observers of the precepts, and the true word monks, who realized that they could not rival me in wisdom, sent petitions to the government. Finding their petitions were not accepted, they approached the wives and widows of high-ranking officials and slandered me in various ways. Get word to him. Get word. Talk to your husband. The women reported the slander to the officials, saying, quote, according to what some monks told us, Nichiren declared that the late lay priests or monks of Saemon-ji and Gokuraku-ji have fallen into the hell of incessant suffering. He said that the temples Kencho-ji, Jufuku-ji, Gokuraku-ji, Choraku-ji, and Daibutsu-ji should be burned down, and the honorable monks Doryo and Ryokan beheaded. Under these circumstances, at the Regent's Supreme Council, my guilt could scarcely be denied. To confirm whether I had or had not made those statements, I was summoned to the court. Okay, there's a lot of chatter among the wives that you're creating trouble and saying that we should burn down temples. Who the heck are you to say this? You come here and talk to us, which is what Nichiren wanted all along. So in the end, it worked out, even though it had to go through this weird, circuitous rumor route. At the court, the magistrate said, quote, you have heard what the regent stated. Did you say these things or not? I answered, every word is mine. However, the statement about the lay monks of Saemon-ji and Gokuraku-ji falling into hell, that's a fabrication. I had been declaring this doctrine, that the schools they belong to lead to hell, since before their death. So he doubled down. I love this guy. End quote. Or no, quote. Everything I said was the future of our country in mind, with the future of our country. If you wish to maintain this land in peace and security, it is imperative that you summon the monks of the other schools for debate in your presence. If you ignore this advice and punish me unreasonably on their behalf, the entire country will have cause to regret your decision. If you condemn me, you will be rejecting the Buddha's envoy. Then you will have to face the punishment of Rama and Shakra, of the deities of the sun and moon, and of the four heavenly kings. Within 100 days after my exile or execution, or within 1, 3, or 7 years, there will occur what is called the calamity of internal strife, rebellion within the ruling clan. This will be followed by the calamity of foreign invasion, attack from all sides, particularly from the west. Then you will regret what you have done. End quote. So, on reading that, if you don't have much scholarship, reading that, you think Nichiren's a pretty arrogant troublemaker, isn't he? Which is undoubtedly how they heard him. But if you understand Nichiren at all, you understand it. And he says it here. You're rejecting the Buddha's envoy. So he's not claiming that he, Nichiren, is superior. He's only claiming that he, Nichiren, is speaking the true teachings, the Buddha's words. And if you go against that, then these things will happen. Not because my wrath will take down Japan. That's not what he's saying. Moving on. Hearing this, the magistrate, Heino Saemon, forgetting all the dignity of his rank, became wild with rage, like the Grand Minister of a state and lay monk Taira no Kiyomori. On the 12th day of the 9th month in the 8th year of Bunei 1271, cyclical sign Kanoto Hitsuji, I was arrested in a manner that was extraordinary and unlawful, even more outrageous than the arrest of the priest Ryoko, or monk, who was actually guilty of treason, and the discipline master Ryoken, who sought to destroy the government. Arrested me like those people. Heino Saemon led several hundreds of armor-clad warriors to take me. Wow, they must have thought he posed quite a threat. They made a big show of it, in other words. And that's, to Nichiren's followers, that's quite a fearful thing, right? Wouldn't you be worried about your own life, practice, family, lands, station, if you saw your mentor being arrested, not just arrested, but 100 SWAT teams showing up to arrest him? Jeez, right? Wearing the headgear of a court noble, he glared in anger and spoke in a rough voice. These actions were in essence no different from those of a grand minister of state and a lay monk who seized power only to lead the country to destruction. Observing this, I realized it was no ordinary event and thought to myself, quote, over the past months I have expected something like this to happen sooner or later. However fortunate that I can give my life for the Lotus Sutra. If I am to lose this worthless head for Buddhahood, it will be like trading sand for gold or rocks for jewels. This worthless head. See that attitude of what I do is who I am. What I believe, what is true. All of that trumps this mortal thing, this body, this useless head. It is in my mind that truth exists, that Buddhahood exists, that all that is life-affirming exists. Not in this, not in this. See that attitude of giving away the body. It's not about burning yourself. It's about the idea that that is meaningless. That is not where the value of life, the process of life exists. This is just fallout. I want you to understand when you read these words, don't take them literally. Dig for the meaning behind them, the substance behind them. These words are little trinkets that we hold in front of our samsaric humanity that needs to be entertained. Remember the monkeys? Give them something that confuses them. They'll go wherever you want them to go. There's the point. Take your mental monkeys. Entertain them with some words, but take them to Gohonzon. Take them to Buddha wisdom. Take them to clarity of the human, the process of all life, of all things. This is why I keep repeating to you, Buddhahood is something to be experienced in this body, in this mortal life. It's the only place where you will experience Buddhahood. It's not something we prepare for when we finally die, and then we can go there. That's religion. That's the preoccupation of cowards. Why do I say this? Because it takes courage to live this life fully, with happiness as your goal. It takes tremendous courage. That is the will that you need, the volition that you need to build, to construct your experience of life upon. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Shobo, Heino Saemon's chief retainer, rushed up, snatched the scroll of the 5th volume of the Lotus Sutra from inside my robes, and struck me in the face with it 3 times. Then he threw it open on the floor. Warriors seized the 9 other scrolls of the sutra, unrolled them and trampled on them, or wound them about their bodies, scattering the scrolls all over the matting and wooden floors until every corner of the house was strewn with them. Wow. Never heard this account. Imagine for a moment how amazing it is that we have these translations of the Lotus Sutra to this day. If that's how they treated somebody they didn't like and took these scrolls, these original scrolls of the Lotus Sutra, and just scattered them about, turned them like trash, how is it that we have a copy of the Lotus Sutra and several translations? Because we historians had to look through history for some that weren't destroyed like this in order for us to study. Remember, too, that part of Lotus Sutra, Myoho Renge Kyo, is not only to read and recite, but to copy and distribute. How amazing that we're given this instruction directly in the Lotus Sutra. Otherwise, Sutra might be lost for all time, if not for its exhortation to copy and distribute. I, Nichiren, said in a loud voice, "How amusing! Look at Heino Saemon gone mad. You gentlemen have just toppled the pillar of Japan." Hearing this, the assembled troops were taken aback. Oh man, you got some cojones, right? When they saw me standing before the fierce arm of the law, unafraid, they must have realized that they were in the wrong, for the color drained from their faces. Both of the 10th, when I was summoned, and on the 12th, I fully described to Heino Saemon the errors of the true word Zen and Nembutsu schools, as well as Ryokan's failure in his meditation for rain. As his warriors listened, they would burst into laughter, and at other times become furious. But I will not go into the details here. Well, you've gone into enough. I'd like to have a recounting of everything that went on there. Man, this guy's courageous. Ryokan prayed for rain from the 18th day of the 6th month of the 4th day of the following month, but I blocked his meditation so that no rain came. Oh, wow. Ryokan meditated himself into a sweat, but nothing fell except his own tears. There was no rain in Kamakura, but on the contrary, strong gales blew continuously. At this news, I sent a messenger to him 3 times saying, quote, "If a person cannot manage to cross a moat 10 feet wide, how can he cross one that is 100 or 200 feet? Izumi Shikibu, a licentious woman, violated one of the 8 precepts by writing poetry, but she made it rain with a poem. The monk Noin, although he broke the precepts, was successful in bringing rainfall from a poem. How is it possible, then, that hundreds and thousands of monks, all of whom observe the 250 precepts, gather to meditate for rain and can do more than raise a gale, even after 1 or 2 weeks of meditation? It should be clear from this that none of you will be able to attain rebirth in the Pure Land." Ryokan read the message and wept in vexation, and to others he reviled me. That jerk. How could he say this? Okay, I'm going to take a break. This is quite a drama. But as you can see, this is all in support of... What timing? This is all in support of what Nichiren has been proclaiming this whole time. So, the country is in civil war. People at all heights of government are in disarray, challenging each other for power. And they're all quoting these different leaders of different sects of Buddhism that just are profoundly in error. And now they're about to be evaded from abroad. So far, this letter is one of encouragement and warning It's kind of a loving embrace of all of his followers. Say, look, I understand this is happening, but in the face of this, you have to be strong. Like this, like when I was arrested, and I stood there and said, you're wrong. This is what's going to happen. This is what you're doing to yourselves and the country. I mean, it shocked the samurai who thought, how do you speak like this to our Lord and Master, right? How do you have the balls to do this? They were in shock. But it didn't slow Nichiren down at all, because Nichiren wasn't fighting for Nichiren. Do you see? He wasn't fighting for his earthly monkeydom. He was fighting for the truth. And the more he stood for the truth, the more he was elevated. His life condition would soar. His Buddhahood would envelop him. Just like it will you and I. You and me. You and me. Sorry, English. Weird language. Thus, here we are. Anyway, thank you so much for participating. I can't wait to get to the next one. In the meantime, please take care of your health. Without it, you can't practice. Stay strong. Download the podcasts so you can listen to them anywhere, anytime. And I will see you in the next one.